one day things are awesome. The next day you're like, oh, I made a mistake. The next day you're like, oh, this is working. The next day you're like, oh, I'm broke. I have no money. The next day you're like, oh, this is kind of working. The next day it's like, gosh, I suck. Everything sucks. I suck. What am I doing?
Welcome to Let's Give a Damn. I'm Nick LaPara, and this is my chance to talk with ordinary people doing extraordinary things because they saw something wrong that needed to be made right, and they gave a damn about it. Today's conversation is with my dear friend Jeremy Cowart. Jeremy has been named the most influential photographer on the web by Huffington Post and Forbes. He has photographed Taylor Swift, Sting, Emma Stone, the Kardashians, and many other celebrities. One time, he even went on tour with Britney Spears. His clients include ABC, Fox, A&E, Discovery Channel, ESPN, and others. His work has been published in Rolling Stone, ESPN, USA Today, Fast Company, The New York Times, virtually everywhere. But he doesn't care about all that. Honestly, he doesn't. Instead, he is orienting his life around loving people, and he is in the beginning stages of building a hotel chain. All that and more in our conversation. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you. Good to be here. Yeah.
Thanks for joining me. I'm incredibly excited that you're here. For starters, you're one of the most inspirational people I know, but you're also episode 1 of season 1 of the Let's Give a Damn podcast.
Dude, congrats to you, man. This is
Thanks.
Amazing. Yeah.
Pretty exciting. Let's jump right into the interview. First question, let's start from the beginning. Tell me your story. I want to hear as much of it as you're willing to tell. That'll give us a framework for the rest of the interview.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm actually from Nashville, one of the few. Grew up just kind of a normal, pretty suburban, very normal life, Nothing bad happened, nothing amazing happened, just very kind of normal middle-class kid. Grew up very shy, didn't excel really much. Didn't make great grades and just never really knew what would happen in life. Excelled early at art, I guess. That's kind of where I initially realized that maybe I was creative. And let's see, went to college, studied design, thought I would be a painter for the rest of my life. Actually, then my parents told me about design, so I headed that route and studied design. Worked for a few ad agencies out of college, realized I hated that world, hated having a boss, hated 9 to 5, working for the man. So ended up 2 or 3 years working for different companies, one of which I got fired from because I wasn't creative. So got booted from there. Eventually started my own design firm, doing graphic design for musicians and just basically all my friends. My friends at the time who were not famous at all, but are now famous. So we all kind of came up together, and it's all been a very accidental, kind of organic journey for me.
Yeah, parents, siblings.
Yeah, my mom and dad, 2 older brothers. So I was the youngest of 3 boys.
Okay.
Out in Hendersonville, Tennessee, the hometown of Johnny Cash.
So you were the youngest of 3 brothers. Were they different from you in terms of being better at school, getting the good grades? Did that play into your story at all in terms of like looking up to them and saying, well, I'm not as good as them, or was that not really the case?
None of us were that smart.
Okay.
They were, let's see, my oldest brother Mike was the kind of the super good looking one, the wild one, kind of the free spirit, he liked to party, and just his whole life was just fun. He just wanted to have fun. Benji was the most talented of the 3 of us, just super skilled at music and performing. He was always the lead in the school play, so he was super creative. And then I was just kind of the quiet, the quiet, shy kid, in the background. And they were both certainly my heroes. I looked up to them a lot. There was never much, jealousy or bitterness. I just loved my brothers. Yeah, we all got along pretty well.
One of the things I love about your story is that you weren't amazing at school. I've heard your story many times. I've seen your video. Many people that are listening probably have as well. And you talk about your grades. You even show your grades on there. Because I think we had this, you weren't the kid that the teachers were looking at as like this prodigy and like, oh, they're going to grow up and do great things.
Never.
Most people look at people that have changed the world, the famous, and they think that they think that there was something maybe big that happened when they were younger, or they were the smartest kid. And as I learn more and more about people, that isn't the case.
Yeah.
And so I love that about your story. I think that's something that helps us identify more with what you're doing and maybe gives us more confidence to go and do things. Talk for a second about some of the amazing opportunities you've had. Before we get into the purpose of this podcast and before we talk about the areas in your life where you have given a damn about others and big ideas, talk about some of the amazing opportunities you've had to work with some people, just to give listeners context.
Yeah, it's everybody from Imogen Heap to the Kardashians to, I'm trying to think of people I usually don't say, because I usually say Taylor Swift,
Right,
Carrie
everybody
Underwood.
knows, yeah.
But there's been a long list, just tons and tons of musicians, hundreds of album covers over the years. It's a long list, but yeah, it's been wild, man. It's been really wild.
Yeah, and so most bios that I've seen for you, they start out with celebrity photographer, because that's what people get. They get goo goo and gaga around these celebrities, and so that's what I've seen first. But why you're on this podcast today is not because you've photographed Taylor Swift or been on tour with Britney Spears. I have something else in mind. And so the next question, was there a specific, so you've told us a little bit about your story. Was there a specific moment or circumstance in your life where that happened, where you began giving a damn about others and about these bigger ideas that are world changing? Or was it more of like a progression, like a series of things that happened?
It was probably a series of events. I mean, I was raised in the church, so you're raised hearing, care for the poor, love your neighbor, blah blah blah. You hear that growing up in the church, and obviously I was thankful for that. But it's not really until you really see it and experience it that you understand. Okay, there really is devastating needs around the world. There are people that live very differently than we do, and they actually, a lot of them don't need help, but a lot of them do need help. And so I think it was probably that first trip to Africa in 2005 that I went on that was kind of my first real culture shock, being dumped into the middle of the bush in the middle of nowhere, having having these people cook for us raw goat and uncooked chicken, and drinking hot, dirty water, and just kind of living their life. That was pretty intense. So yeah, that gets in your system. You just never forget it. I mean,
right.
I think about that trip probably on a weekly, if not daily basis. Think about the experiences I've had. So yeah, that was certainly a wake up call to me, going, wow, this is legit. It's done something to me. It's weird because a lot of times, like, another photographer going on another trip to Africa, it's really useless. Like, we don't need more photographers in third world countries. And so, as much as I think that even I was useless on that first trip, what those trips do is they plant a seed.
Exactly.
Because here I am, 10 years, 12 years, whatever, 15 years, I can't count. Later, doing things that do matter. But if it weren't for that trip of me being another useless white person in Africa, that it just planted a seed. Like, okay, wow, there's need out there. And that trip was so much more fulfilling than, shooting whatever next celebrity. So I've just seen a lot of articles and things over the last few years of people making fun of the missionary going to Africa and really not helping anybody. It almost hurts more than it helps.
Right.
Which I agree with to a certain extent, but I would also say that, like, the seeds have to get planted somehow.
Absolutely.
And I would say that every effective person that is now doing work around the world, they've probably first started on a useless trip as well. So anyway, yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, it seems like that was a pivotal moment then, right, in 2005, where that sparked something that you said you still think about it on a weekly basis. And funny enough, that was my first expo. I'd never heard of you before, but that coffee table book that came out of that, I still have it.
That's
I still
awesome.
have it packed away somewhere. And the cool thing is that people, yeah, that's a very pivotal moment that happened there, I think, for you. And that can happen anywhere, though, right? People don't need to go to. No, I think I want people to travel more and get exposed more. I've traveled all over the world. You have, and those are experiences that I'll never forget, and they have helped shape who I am. But that thing that shifted in you can happen as we interact with a poor person, right down the street, or
you don't have to go to Africa for that to happen. It can certainly happen in your own city. I mean, there's need like that everywhere. I think it's just when you're, the difference in that trip is like if somebody goes downtown to serve at the rescue mission all day, that's one thing. But when you fly across the world and you live there, I was there for a month, so 4 weeks, just really, really being in it, and that's when sleeping there and eating the food and dancing with them and singing with them and carrying the water that they have to carry on the top of your head and understanding the neck-breaking pain that comes along with that, and truly experiencing culture. I do recommend that people, yes, there's need in our backyard everywhere all over the world,
right,
but it is good to, even if it's your local mission, go live there for a week. Go truly immerse yourself. Don't just show up to serve dinner at 5 p.m. on a,
Exactly.
So I think that's what changes you, is really getting immersed in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some specific moments in your life when you have given a damn. And I'll name a few that are bigger ones.
Sure.
And you can talk as little or as much about those as you want, but I think they're important. So here, you still do have a successful career in photography, and you could make that bigger and better. But it seems like you've chosen to do more impactful things. And so talk about, has it been worth it so far? And so let me point out a few. There's Help Portrait. Mm-hmm. There's Voices of Haiti, which was an impactful It's a photography essay that really impacted me. I mean, I wept through those photos. The Purpose Hotel, and you and your family have adopted as well, which is a huge monumental thing. And so talk as little or as much about those 4 specific ones, but then point out any others that you're working on or have worked on that, or don't take one of those out if you have something else that you want to talk about. But I'd love to hear about those specific moments that you saw a need and you went after it.
Yeah, Help Portrait was a culmination of a few different things. I remember seeing Chase Jarvis years ago had kind of done a model, like a bunch of photographers show up and shoot models and learn about gear. And I remember thinking, that's cool, but what if instead of shooting models, they were helping people, And at the same time, there was this thing at the time called not conspiracy, but it was a movement around Christmas time that just said, what if we did things with our hands or gave away time or made things for people instead of buying more useless toys
that we're going to sell at the next garage sale.
Yeah, that we're going to throw away or sell. And so it's just this culmination of things. I was like, man, what if we just did a photo shoot for people in need, and did that. And so we tried it first in Nashville, and then that was amazing, and everybody just said, hey, if you ever do this, I want to be a part of it. So that's when it gave me the idea to launch it on a larger scale the next year. And to this day, we still do it every Christmas. And it was, I'll never forget the first time we did it, though, because for weeks on end, I was getting stories just pouring in from around the world of people having their lives changed by either receiving or even the givers' lives were changed. Like, I've never knew I could have this much of an impact with a camera, things like that. It's pretty ridiculous. For the listener,
do you have any numbers that you can share? Like how many locations, how many photographs have been taken? And talk about that, because I think that's helpful to even know.
The hard part is a lot of locations never report their numbers. So we can only report the true numbers. We've counted nearly 500,000 portraits that have been taken, but honestly, if I had to guess, I would say it's got to be 1 million.
It has to be way more, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be way more, because so many people just never get around to either even doing the counting to begin with or reporting after they do the counting. So it's loose, but we've counted about over 100,000 photographers that have participated, but I would even imagine that's way, way over 100,000. It's got to be. So yeah, I don't know. A lot of people have participated.
What about Voices of Haiti?
Yeah, that was just a one of those wild hair ideas after the earthquake. Which, oddly enough, right now there's a hurricane approaching Haiti as we speak. But yeah, I just remember wanting to do something, sitting on my couch and watching CNN, and just didn't like how the media was reporting it all. So I was like, I want to engage and participate. So I went down there myself and did just that. Yeah. So it was crazy to literally be there during aftershocks, and the ground is shaking under you, and there are dead bodies. Like, I just remember walking past dead bodies and seeing people running around just yelling for their loved ones, trying to find the people that they had lost. And just, you're walking by. All the electricity was out, so to create light, they had to light fires. So there were just fires everywhere. I mean, it was like end of world. It's actually quite dangerous for me to be in that scenario.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, it was like, it looked like the end of the world. That's for sure.
And you guys shot a wedding, right?
Yeah.
Where there were some people getting married, right? I remember that.
Yeah, that was insane. We heard there was a wedding going on. Truly, it was mind blowing. I just remember thinking, like, what? Because I'd spent all day just the smells, the sounds, the things you'd see and hear were like a Hollywood movie. And then to hear that in the midst of all that, somebody was getting married, it was wild. So yeah, we somehow, by luck, ended up finding that wedding, and I took a portrait of the couple, and they wrote on. I guess the wedding had just finished, and I guess they had served a little bit of food or something, but there was actually just one like little paper plate remaining. It was clean, and meanwhile the church is just destroyed. The church was literally, they had to get married in the grass beside the church because the church was no longer there. And so yeah, I found this one paper plate and just had them write anything they wanted on that plate, and they wrote "Love Conquers All." It just blew my mind. So in fact, I think that might be my first tattoo when I get a tattoo, is taking their handwriting and using that as a tattoo.
When are you gonna do that?
I don't know. Soon. I'm ready. I'm ready.
What about adoption? You guys have
Yeah.
adopted. Tell me a little bit about that. That's a hard thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we've been together for 20 years, my wife and I, and so it's been something we've loosely discussed since day one. Feels like such a trendy thing these days, but I mean, since we first dated when we were 19, adoption has always been on the radar. So yeah, about 5 years ago, it kind of maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, yeah, it started getting more serious about it, and just jumped into the conversation through some friends, and met some people in Haiti and started the process. Turns out those people were completely corrupt. So, we dove straight into corruption, and it took about a year longer to get out of that. So yeah, it's been a wild journey. It took us 3 years to get them home, and they came home last of May. And it's funny because people celebrate when kids come home, but that's really when the hard part begins.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been maybe 16 months, and our daughters transitioned. I mean, they both transitioned well, but it's just hard. It's a hard journey for sure. It's fun. It's amazing. I just see it's like every emotion. I guess like any child is, But in comparison to raising two of my biological children, adoption has been way harder for many obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be a calling. It is beautiful, but it's brutal too. So I use the word brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend who speaks on the topic of adoption. She's spoken at many conferences and events, and she always starts her talk off kind of to get people's attention, but she starts her talk off by saying, don't ever, ever, ever adopt. She's adopted 5 or 6 children that are now grown, many of them in college and married. But she starts off to kind of just like hit people in the face, like, this is not the pamphlets and the videos make it seem like this sexy, cool thing to do. It's the hardest thing you're ever going to do, and then some.
Yeah, it is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. There's no question.
My wife and I, we have a failed adoption under our belt. 5 years ago, we went all the way through the adoption process and got the little girl for 3 days, and then the birth mother, who was 13 and had been sexually abused, she ended up keeping the baby. That was we never even got the baby home, and that's something that has radically changed our lives forever. Just spending 3 days with that little girl and the memories and the tens of thousands of dollars and the heartache to get to that point where it failed. And so we hope to adopt at some point, but not. We've already seen enough of that world to know that it's not this. It's the pamphlets are fine and the videos are fine, but it has to be, like you said, a calling. Yeah. Talk about the big one right now in my mind, the Purpose Hotel. Talk about, as briefly or as long as you want to, talk about where that came from, what's happening right now, and how even people that are listening, this won't come out until later in the month, so after the campaign's over, but how can people get involved if they would like?
I would say just keep spreading the word on social media. I mean, we don't know yet. The problem is too much interest. The problem is too many people want to be involved right now. So we don't know yet. I mean, we're at ground zero in terms of building a hotel, and so we have hundreds of emails from all over the world, from investors and architects and designers and nonprofits and just people who just love us and want to be involved and want to work for us. I'm like, we can't hire anybody yet.
It's an amazing problem to have.
It is an amazing problem.
It's a problem.
But it's still a problem.
Yeah, right.
And so, I don't know. We're just figuring it out. The vision is 1,000% there, but, the execution will be a journey.
Yeah. Where can people go to find out more about that?
Yeah, just thepurposehotel.com. You can check it out there.
Great. Let's transition to a little more in your personal life as you execute these ideas. You're always working on a fantastic idea, implementing something new, it seems. At least to the public eye, that's what it seems like. But family is hugely important for you. Mm-hmm. How does this work out in your marriage and family, the balancing work life? Because you're a visionary that seems to have endless ideas, but you have a family, you have 4 kids and a wife, and you want to take care of them and love them well and be there for them. So how have you, for people out there that at least think they're similar to you or have that drive to change the world, how do you work through that, and how do you recommend they think through that, even though every situation and family is different?
Yeah, there's really no strategy. I mean, I tell people it has to be a day-to-day thing. Like, it has to be, I try to be with, take my kids to school every morning. So I'm at home from 7 to 9 a.m. and then I come to work, and I typically go home between 5 and 6 every day. So I don't work all night. I do send some emails from home. But yeah, I try to be home every night and do dinner with them and just play and get home and throw football and jump on the trampoline and stuff like that. But then my wife, obviously we know there's going to be travel. It's not a ton. I think people think I travel a lot more than I really do. I would say I travel these days maybe 20% of the calendar year. Actually, that might be an exaggeration. It might be 10%. Okay. But I think people think that I probably travel like over half my time, So it's not that bad, and I hope it's going to become even less. But it really comes down to just day to day, choosing your children every chance you get. I mean, I turn down so many things, so many opportunities and so many, because I just want to be, especially when my kids have important moments like birthdays or games or tournaments or dance recitals. Like, nothing trumps those. Like, you shut it down, doesn't matter how
that's good
big a deal. Like, birthdays are, I will not miss a birthday. So you just gotta
because if you change the world but lose your family in the process, that's not fun. And every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to 100 other things that you could be doing. So I think that's super helpful. That's good to hear. Real quickly before we head into the last few questions, do you have tell me about the hardships of this sort of a life? Because again, I think from the outside, somebody watching your Instagram stories, your Snapchat, your social media, the videos. If they go to an event and hear you speak, again, it has this certain air of like sexiness, and it seems like you're always on the up and up with these things. Tell me about the ups and the downs. Are there those? Are you optimistic most of the time? Do you have really hard days? What does that look like? Just to help the listeners get a real grasp on what giving a damn actually looks like. That it is not always sexy and shiny and awesome. Can you talk about that for a minute or two? It's not, there's not always the beautiful music playing in the background of the video when you're going through your daily life.
Yeah, I mean, it is truly there's that, I just posted a graph the other day that was like, one day things are awesome, the next day you're like, oh, I made a mistake. The next day you're like, oh, this is working. The next day you're like, oh, I'm broke, I have no money. The next day you're like, oh, this is kind of working. The next day it's like, gosh, I suck, everything sucks, I suck, what am I doing? And the next day you're like, wait a minute, this is pretty awesome, I'm pursuing my dreams. The next day you're like, oh, wait a minute. It is that. I mean, it is that. For me, for 15 years, just up and down every day. Even like in the last week, I would say I've been more down than I've been up. Just I don't know. It's hard sometimes to see the bigger picture of what you're doing when you're just drowning in the details, drowning in the what's not happening. Even though I'm trying to build a global hotel chain, like when I remind myself of that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool what I'm doing. But I'm not living in that. I'm living in the, like, what is happening right now. And look how far we have to go. And look at all the competition. Look at all the money we have to find. And look at all the things we have to do. I mean, it's completely daunting. So, yeah, there's... it's hard, But I also love it. And I always say that my favorite day, or my worst day working for myself, is still better than my best day working for somebody else. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't trade what I'm doing for the world. There's no doubt that I'm happy and having a blast pursuing all these ideas. But it's still work, it's still hard and grueling and, but I do love it. There's no doubt.
Let's keep going with that for 1 minute. As the Let's Give a Damn family grows, I suspect that some people will just listen to the podcast because they want to hear great stories. But I think most people that listen to this and engage with this idea, they want to change the world, help their fellow man, fellow woman. Can you give some practical steps to listeners on how they can begin doing that? They're working 9 to 5, whatever. They're paying off student loans. They've got 3-4 kids. They're trying to figure out what is my thing. How can I have my give a damn moment? How do I break out of what I'm doing to actually start caring about other people? A lot of it comes down to money even. A lot of friends I know say, I can't give to charity water. I can't give to these things because we're maxed out, There's always room for it, I think, when you shift things around. If you want to help out, you can do it. But there's those real... pressures that, like, how do I even start doing this? So for someone who is years down the road in doing these types of things, do you have just a couple practical things you can share with the listeners?
Yeah, my brain is fried.
It's okay.
This is the part you have to edit. Repeat that question one more time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the majority of people listening want to change the world. I think that's why they're here. That's why they're listening, consuming the content. How can someone think before 2005, right? You're doing your job, you're doing the grind, photographing these people. What are some practical things they can do today, like in the next 24 hours, things they can do to begin experiencing that shift, begin climbing over that mountain, the one that they're never going to return from. On the other side, it's change the world. It's love your fellow man, fellow woman. What are a couple practical things that you would encourage?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, like, you have to... I do think everybody has ideas, and you just have to be such a good steward of at least writing those down. Just those little random thoughts. Like, that's good. Most people ignore that and get those documented. And this is actually what my talk was about the other day when I spoke at Story. But you have to, there's two things that happen when you have an idea or want to pursue your dreams. And again, I talked about this the other day. There's either a black box or a white box. And the white box represents freedom and a blank canvas to just start. And the black box represents captivity. And we're all held captive by our insecurities and our voices of doubt and our shame and we just live there. And there's the door that you have to open to get into the white, to get into the blank canvas, to just start, just putting that pencil on paper, whether that's the first word of your book or the first mark you make on your painting or the first picture you take. Like, you just have to get through that door from the dark to the possibility, freedom. And so I always say that if you say no, if you live in the dark and say no to your first idea, what you're also doing is saying no to your 10th idea, your 20th idea. Because for me, like all of my ideas, it's literally a momentum thing,
Right.
Like each one informs the next and teaches the next. And all of these combined ideas have now gotten me to the hotel, because I just have gained so much confidence from each of them and learned so much from each of them. But it all just every time starts with me like just scribbling something and just starting. And scribbling can translate to sharing an idea with my wife, telling my business partner about something, just getting the conversation started. So, yeah, I just think people have to be good stewards of those little whispers, those little ideas, document them, share them with the people you trust in your life, and you just gotta start. Yeah.
That is an incredibly perfect segue into my next thing before we finish up. Before we tackle the last question or two, I want to encourage you and point out something that I really love about you.
Sure.
Gary Vaynerchuk always says, ideas are shit, execution is the game.
Mm-hmm.
And what you just said is what I admire most about you, is that you're able to, like, ideas are fine, but they're everywhere. Like around a million coffee shop tables right now, people are saying, I had this idea that's going to change the world.
Yeah, exactly.
But why haven't we done it? And it's because the execution is not there. And so I want to commend you for that. I think that's a great example for me and for us, that what you said is so great, that if you say no to the first one, you're saying no to the 10th. That's incredibly true and great, that they build on each other. The momentum grows as when you execute on that idea and you start to see some sort of success from that gives you energy and hope for the next idea.
Absolutely.
But if we just sit around, if we just put it on paper and write it down, then it's not gonna, and just lock it away. It starts there, writing it down, but then it has to go from there to, okay, how can I practically work this out?
Yeah.
And so I love that about you.
So
and
cool.
I want to commend you on that.
Well, thank you.
Last question. When you die, which hopefully won't be for many, many years, this is a hypothetical scenario. I'm going to give your eulogy. What do you want me to say? In 3 to 4 sentences, what do you want your legacy to be? The very first things that come to my mind when I'm tasked with giving your eulogy in front of your family, friends, and fans.
Yeah. My eulogy, gosh, I don't even know. Just that I hopefully loved my children well, and that I was present, and that I was brave, I guess, relentlessly pursued those whispers. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a hard one.
Sorry for popping it on you.
No, it's good. I do think about death almost every day because of losing my brother a couple years ago. That's why I launched the university, which is just to leave all my knowledge and wisdom out on the internet, because we do live in a time now where that's possible to leave our knowledge. I have no idea. It's weird to think about your own life and yourself in that way. It feels arrogant to think of, what I want, but I don't know.
Well, I think you're doing a great job. I think your legacy is going to be worth a lot for whoever gets to see it. And I'm sorry for springing that on you.
No.
Full disclosure for everyone listening: Jeremy has a huge headache right now when I came to the studio, and so I know that's at play here. But no, that's good. That's good what you said. I mean, starting with that I was present with my family. Like that's huge. I want that on my tombstone.
Yeah,
that I wasn't.
That's probably the hardest challenge, because it's easy to go home and be physically present, but it's hard to be mentally present.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
That's probably my hardest challenge right now, is just turning off work mentally, because I'm always going. So that's my biggest thing I'm trying to figure out right now, is how to be with my kids, like really be with them.
Totally.
It's always. I'm not even close to getting there. That's my struggle. So yeah, just want to be a good dad, good husband.
That's awesome. Last question before I say goodbye. Is there anything else you would like to share with the Let's Give a Damn family that I failed to ask you? And follow up. Well, first, do you have anything to share that I didn't ask you?
No, I think you're good.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Where can people check out more about you and check out more about what you're doing?
I'm at Jeremy Cowart on all networks, and the hotel is at the Purpose Hotel on all networks. And I think that's it. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thanks for joining me today, Jeremy. This was an honor, and I'm excited to continue watch you create cool stuff and empower others to give a damn.
Thank you, sir.
See you around.
I love the name Let's Give a Damn. It's so great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
Congrats.
see. We'll see what happens.
I'm honored to be the first.
That's awesome. Thanks. Thank you so much for joining Jeremy and I for our conversation today. Please be sure to follow Jeremy Cowart everywhere on social media. And if you enjoyed our chat, let him know. Also, please subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. And ask your friends to listen and subscribe too. The more, the merrier. You can follow Let's Give a Damn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to find out more about the show and other things we have planned to implement very soon. And head on over to our Facebook page and click on the sign up button to receive weekly emails containing amazing stories like the one you heard here today. Also, if you want, follow me at Nick LaPara on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. I'd love to see you there. Well, that's all for today. Can't wait to spend more time with you soon, friends. And I urge you, even today, to begin giving a damn about the things around you that are wrong, that you have the ability to help make right. Until next time,